This is Tony Gonzalez, and today we are going to talk to Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater, who is going to release Parasomnia, the first recording in several years. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Good. How you doing, man?
Perfect, perfect. Tell me, this part of the story began in 2020 when Terminal Velocity, the second solo effort by Petrucci, you participate or before?
Well, I would say, it's been many years of working on the relationships with the guys. Even before 2020 and doing John's solo album, it had been years of he and I getting together, just to be friends again, and work on the personal stuff and getting together with the families for the holidays and things like that. So, I had said there's been many baby steps through the years leading to this point.
In 2021, Liquid Tension Experiment 3 was released. Was this recording a way to see if the magic, the feeling among you and Petrucci and Jordan Roots was working?
I mean, you could look at it that way, but really that wasn't the intention. The intention was to fill a void, to make music together again, the three of us. And, we hadn't done a Liquid Tension album in many, many, many years. So it felt like a good time when we were in lockdown in 2020 to get together and finally do it. But yeah, in some ways you can look at LTE3 as a bit of the bridge that brought me back to Dream Theater. You could definitely look at it that way.
Let me confess you that taking account that you produced 6 Dream Theater albums with John Petrucci, beginning with Metropolis Part 2 and ending with Black Clouds and Silver Lining, I imagine that you will produce Parasomnia again. Tell me about it.
Well, I'm not getting the co-production credit on the album. John got that by himself, and that was something that he brought up to me. One of the very first things he brought up when discussing coming back to Dream Theater was that he wanted to maintain that sole producer credit. So, I can't come in and insist on things being a certain way. I needed to be respectful of what had been happening for the years that I was gone. So I had to respect that request, and that's fine. That's okay. Didn't lessen my input. Really, we were able to make the record the same way that we always have.
Another point is that you were lyricist in the first Dream Theater recordings, but recently you declared that you will be happy to not write any lyrics again. Does it mean that you don't write any lyrics in Parasomnia?
No, I did actually. I wrote the lyrics to Midnight Messiah. Um, and yeah, as I've mentioned through the years, I would have been okay not writing lyrics, but John and the rest of the guys uh, kind of persuaded me to pick up the pen again. And you know, John thought that it would be expected. He said that many of the Dream Theater fans would be expecting me to be writing some lyrics. So he asked if I would consider it, and sure enough, I picked up the pen and did it for Midnight Messiah.
Yes, I expect that you write some lyrics, for
Yeah.
example. Yes, yes. And Hugh Syme designed the art of the cover. Hugh is unique. How the band decided to work with him?
Well, we started working with him back in 2005 for the Octavarium album, and he's done every Dream Theater studio album since. Well, actually, except for one, if I'm correct. But yeah, it's been a long relationship now, over 20 years of working with Hugh, and it's a great working relationship. He's such a creative person, and obviously, we have a lot of respect for his history. He had done every Rush album throughout their career, so there's a lot of history there that we really admire and respect.
In the past, I have seen that you have worked with a man who is called Joel Barrios, working the art from bands where you were working, like Transatlantic, Flying Colors, and he took pictures of you that can be seen on the cover of some American magazines. Tell me, could he be a candidate for future Dream Theater merchandise, or is a man who you prefer that works with your other projects?
Well, Joel is a very talented photographer, but I'm not really exclusive to him. He's just worked on many projects, with Neil Morse related things through the years and maybe a few other things. But no, Dream Theater's got a set group of people that the band works with. And Hugh Syme has been over 20 years now, and I think the band is very happy with him. And we have our own tour photographer that tours with us, and he's a photographer and a videographer that he's been out with us since the tour began. So we kind of have our people already dialed in at the moment.
Now that you mentioned Neil Morse, your relationship with Neil is really good, and I imagine he would like to have you in this project again for the future. Are you going to continue working with the other projects you have?
Well, yeah, but time will tell, when and which ones. Right now, my focus is solely on Dream Theater. We have a long year of touring ahead of us, and the new album. We spent all 2024 making the new album, and it's not even out yet. So obviously, there's a long road ahead for Dream Theater at the moment, and that's my focus and priority. But Neil and I still talk constantly, and he's very supportive of me being back in Dream Theater, and we hope that when the schedule loosens up a little bit, that we could do some more stuff together.
After you told me that the approaching with the rest of the guys, your friends from Dream Theater, was happened for several years, let me ask you this question. For example, Troika, the band, was recorded with Nick DeVirgilio and Neil Morse, and it was because you weren't available.
No, that project has nothing to do with me. That was Neil wanting to do a more folk-oriented acoustic trio, and that has nothing to do with me. Obviously, Neil is free to work with whoever he wants outside of the projects that we have together.
Yes, I think that it was because Nick DeVirgilio is a good singer, but
Yes, of course.
I discovered that you already sang. You sing.
Yeah, I sing in all the bands and projects I'm a part of. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes. So uh, we have seen during the tour, because you were here in Madrid in last November, we have seen that you don't have any problem playing songs from the Mangini era. I mean, not in technical skill, but I was thinking that you prefer playing only songs that you previously played with the band.
No, that would be selfish of me to just sweep away 5 albums of theirs that I wasn't a part of. That's, that wouldn't be very fair for the fans that enjoy those albums. So yeah, it's okay to include songs from that era. I have no problem with that.
And another question that now that I have the opportunity to talk to you, I would like to know, because maybe I will have never the opportunity to talk to the men I'm going to mention. Usually, the rhythm section in a band works matching the bass and the drums. I would like to know about the most quiet, the most silent person in Dream Theater. You know who is.
Well, obviously, I've been playing with John Mayung for 40 years now. We met when we were teenagers in college. So I've been playing with him for a very, very long time. And, obviously he and I have made a lifetime worth of music together and thousands of live concerts. So he and I obviously work together very, very well, and we have a natural relationship together. But he's an enigmatic character. He's very, very quiet, very unique, keeps to himself. Uh, it's hard to always read what's going on with John Mayung, but he's a very, very interesting character and an amazing bass player.
When was the last time that you saw John Mayon discussing about something?
He has certain people that he clings onto and opens up to. He has his bass tech. Jerry. He spends a lot of time on stage right. They have a little tent with a cappuccino maker and espresso maker, and he has it's like John Mayung's little house over there on the side of the stage. And he and his bass tech Jerry have a very close relationship.
You always says that Neil Peart from Rush was one of your main influences. I have seen the way you set the drums, and I would like to know, for example, what did you get from Neil Peart's way of playing?
Well, Neil was, a huge, huge influence on me when I was a teenager and when I was just discovering progressive music. Bands like Rush, Yes, Genesis, King Crimson. I became obsessed with that kind of style as I was developing as a drummer as a teenager. And Neil taught me a lot about how to treat the drums as a very musical instrument, more so than just a rhythmic one, but a musical one. The way he would construct his parts, and they would vary from verse to chorus, from verse to chorus, and he would develop the drums in a very musical sense. And also, I was very, very inspired by the giant drum kits that he played. I would stare at the pictures of his drum set, and it made me want to play a big drum set like that.
And in terms of the lyrics, because Neil also write the lyrics, you were
Yeah, obviously, Neil uh, is a tremendous lyricist, and his lyrics were always hugely inspirational for me, for sure.
yes. And when you write the lyrics, you are inspired by books or movies or something. What is the main source of inspiration?
This my main source of inspiration is for my lyrics are things that I've gone through. Like A Change of Seasons was written out of personal experiences of my mom dying in a plane crash. The Best of Times was a song I wrote about mine and my father's life and relationship. The 12 Step Suite was written right out of my life and my struggle with recovery from alcoholism. Honor Thy Father was a relationship with my stepfather that had gone bad. So most of my lyrics are coming from personal experiences in my life.
You mentioned in the previous question that Neil Peart have a huge drum set, and I remember that you are a drum collector, and I'm curious to know more about this. For example, because as long as I know, you don't collect the Keith Moon snare drum or Ringo Starr drumstick, you collect the complete set.
Yeah.
Do you have a Neil Peart complete set?
Well, I can't lift up the camera and show you, but right on the other side of this camera is my Neil Peart tribute kit. Yeah, I have one for Neil Peart, I have one for Keith Moon, one for John Bonham, and one for Ringo Starr. I have complete replica drum kits of each of them.
Yes, but is a replica or originals that you
No,
got?
it's a replica. I only play Tama drums, so I did tribute bands to Led Zeppelin, The Who, The Beatles, and Rush, and in each of those cases, Tama and Sabian built replica kits for me. And in the case of the Neil Peart one, Neil actually autographed one of the drums on the kit for me.
Yes. So, but now that you tell me this, my question is, where do you live? In a palace? Because you really space.
Well, you can see my studio, and there's my Ringo Starr replica kit
Yes.
and my library. So you can see, yeah, my house is very much like a Hard Rock Cafe. There's just things everywhere and replicas, drum kits, replicas, and all kinds of memorabilia from the tours I've done through the years. So yeah, it's a bit of a museum here.
Yes. You had mentioned Ringo Starr twice. Comparing to you, Ringo is the opposite. What did you take from Ringo Starr?
Well, I uh, grew up from day one loving the Beatles. From the minute I was born April 20th, 1967, and that's the same exact day that the Beatles completed work on Sergeant Pepper, and then the album came out 6 weeks later. And I was listening to it at 6 weeks old on a little record player that, my dad playing Beatles records for me. So I learned everything uh, on how to begin playing drums from Ringo. He was my drum teacher when I was a kid. And one of the most important things I learned from him was how to play the right part for the song. And Ringo had such a unique style that in those experimental Beatles albums in the late 60s, when they were getting very experimental with recordings and production, he was treating the drums in a very, very musical way. You look at a track like Come Together or Penny Lane, he's literally playing single snare hits
Mm.
because that's what's called for. That's what the groove called for. And, I liked his inventiveness. Before him, most drummers were not even a personality in the band. Nobody even knew who the drummers were until he came around with the Beatles. And he came forth as a true band member and personality within the band, which was always so important to me.
I remember Abbey Road. There is a long piece that is called Golden Slumber, but it's the first time that I can listen Ringo playing a little harder than usual. But it
Well,
was a
that
part that influenced you.
I mean, obviously, I love the Abbey Road album, and that's the first time he had a recorded drum solo in the end. But yeah, side two of Abbey Road remains to me one of my favorite pieces of music ever, and I got to cover it a few times through the years. I played it with my Beatles tribute band, Yellow Matter Custard. I also we did a version of it with Transatlantic on our Bridge Across Forever tour. So yeah, through the years, I've been able to play side two of Abbey Road several times. It's one of my favorite pieces of music.
Now that you mentioned this kind of tributes, the band lost the tradition of doing one-off covers and the official bootleg series from Dream Theater. Is there any possibility in the closer future that go back, now that you go back to doing this again, a tribute recording for the fans or something like that?
Sure. There's no immediate plans for the time being. We're still getting comfortable, playing together again and jumping into the back catalog as we have. There's a lot to work with now, 16 albums to work with. Whereas when we were covering the albums like Master of Puppets and Number of the Beast and Dark Side of the Moon, back then we only had maybe 8 albums to work with. So obviously there's a lot more music in the Dream Theater catalog to utilize. So there's no plans to cover any albums in their entirety as of now. But that being said, it's always possible. We'll see what kind of options lay ahead for us.
Yes. Mike, what is the secret to keep fit and energetic? Because you have been recording more than 2 records a year, for sure.
Well, I mean, being available for the past 13 years and doing all of my different bands and projects enabled me to do multiple albums per year. I think even in the year 2020, when we were in lockdown, I think I put out maybe like 8 albums that year or something like that. So it comes down to availability. When I was a quote unquote free agent for all those years, but now being back full time with Dream Theater obviously means I have a lot less available time for outside projects. So, for instance, I think the only studio album I'll have in 2025 will be Parasomnia, just because my focus now is with Dream Theater full time again. So it means a lot less output for my personal discography, but that's okay. Need to make up for lost time with my family, meaning Dream Theater.
Availability, 3 marriages, 5 divorces. No? Yes, because my wife now is waiting for me for half a dinner. So yes, there is something that I always have is, wow, Mike Portnoy is almost everywhere. It's really, really extraordinary for you.
Thank you.
In November 2024, the band was playing in Madrid at La Cubierta de Leganés. How was the experience?
It was an amazing night. The Spanish fans are just always so passionate. You know, to me, the interaction between the band and the audience is so important. And every time we play in Spain, there's so much interaction, so much love back and forth that it really inspires me during the show, helps me rise to the occasion.
And the next tour will be the 40th anniversary celebration. Are there any special plans in terms of set list, decoration, or playing the first material the band recorded?
Well, we've been doing the 40th anniversary set list now for a few months throughout Europe and South America, and we'll continue with this show that we're doing now on the upcoming North American tour. But once we come back around to Europe for another leg come summertime, the set list will start mixing up a little bit depending on what market we're in. If it's a new market that we haven't played yet, like Turkey or Greece or Romania, places like that, we'll continue playing the 40th anniversary set list that we have been playing. But if we're repeating markets or doing a festival show, the set list will definitely start to switch around a bit by next summer.
Yes. So when you are not recording or when you are not touring, that maybe will be 1 week in a year or something like that. But how is the life of Mike Portnoy?
Well, it's been incredibly busy, and I've spent all of 2024 with Dream Theater making the new record, and now once the tour began in October, we've been incredibly busy. We're home with our families now for the holidays, but we're getting ready to get back to work next week for the next leg, which begins here in North America.
And when you go out in the street, are you recognized by the people or you can walk along in your neighborhood or wherever?
But it depends where you are. It depends where I go.
Mm. I remember that you were born, if I don't make a mistake, you were born in New York. Do you still
Yeah.
live in New York?
I live in Pennsylvania now. I've been here for about 20 years, but yeah, the band is still based in New York. That's where the band's headquarters is.
Not like Paul McCartney or something like that, or that if you the people see in the street you need to run or something. No.
It depends where you are. If you're in if we're in an airport in South America, there's usually a lot of fans everywhere, and there's crazy Beatlemania in some markets like that, like South America. But when I'm back home, I'm just a normal guy taking out the garbage on Sunday nights, and doing things around the house with the family. It's a very normal life I live here in suburbia, USA.
And you mentioned your family and playing music. Do you consider that be in contact with music since the early years is good for the boys and girls, the young people?
Yeah, absolutely. Music is soothing and healing when you're sad, and it's joyous when you're happy, and celebration. And it really music is very much a healer of all emotions.
And when you quit Dream Theater several years ago, do you need a process of healing?
Yeah, it took many years of healing the personal relationships, and after 25 years together, going through something like that was very dramatic for all of us, and it took time. Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up because I have another interview scheduled to begin any minute now. So we're going to have to
yes.
wrap up.
Yes, my last was I enjoyed this conversation, Mike. I'm glad to talk to you. Thank you for your time. I hope to see you in person one day
Thank you.
here in Madrid.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Big hug for you.
Gracias.
A ti.
Okay, adios, amigo.
Adiós.